So indie games are great because occasionally you come across a gem that just looks like it's got so much potential. This one is called Diplomacy is Not an Option. There is currently a demo out and it's available on Steam. And if you can't take my word for it, I highly recommend that you just go off and play it yourself and see what I'm talking about. Anyway, so Diplomacy Not an Option is a top-down RTS. It's based in the feudal system, and it's got that graphic system. It kind of almost looks like it's made in voxels, with those kind of like one-tone, three-dimensional, kind of pixel-esque structuring, where nothing has really that much detail, but just kind of like the abstractness of it gives it a nice shape and feel to it. Now, the overarching system to this game isn't a revolutionary or a new one. If you've played, for example, They Are Billions, then you're pretty familiar with kind of like the survival-esque build a city and defend against the horde systems. But ever since the release of They Are Billions, then there really hasn't been anything to fill kind of like the vacuum that it left behind after everyone essentially got bored playing it. And this is where Diplomacy is Not an Option comes in. So in the demo there is a tutorial mode and then there is an endless mode that you can take part in. And while it doesn't give you access to the full tech tree, you get a pretty good idea of what the game is trying to set up. At the centre of your kingdom you have a castle, and this is supported through your population, who then take on various roles that you need to kind of sustain your kingdom as it gets battered by endless waves of enemies. And these roles range from everything from your gravedigger to builders to fishermen to berry pickers to people who just run around collecting all the resources and putting it into their various pots that they belong to. There's also the whole element of building defences and big castle walls, and also building an army. You get very basic ones at the start. You get archers, you get swordsmen, and you also get catapults when you build the necessary technology. The infrastructure is simple enough. You have 5 resources that you will need to manage. The first one being the number of people you have that you can assign to doing various jobs, and then you have your stereotypical resources such as food, wood, metal and stone. And this is where all the balancing issues come in, because if you build a huge town, then you also have to feed it. And the larger the populace, then the bigger risk of disease and famine affecting your whole city. The game also has a pretty big physics system. None of the weapons are hit scanned, so arrows actually have to hit their target, and if something's in the way, then that something will also block the arrows, meaning that positioning is extremely important, and you can use the environment to your advantage when needed. There's also a really cool magic system to help you manage the huge waves of enemies that come at you, and these include summoning down giant fireballs, using a laser beam to cut through the giant waves of enemies, and also being able to summon up waves of undead knights. In terms of actual modes that you can play around with, there are 2. You've either got the endless mode where you just put into a randomly generated map and you have to survive as long as possible, or alternatively you can play the story mode where you're given set scenarios and you just have to survive whatever they throw at you. From my limited time of playing this game, I set out to do 30 minutes and it ended up becoming 2.5 hours. It just flew on by, which was both great and terrifying because it was just so easy to lose myself into this game having a good time. In terms of performance, it ran pretty well. There were some notable moments where I did find it stuttering a little bit, and I'm still not sure if that was my system or perhaps it was the game itself. I'll have to do some further testing on that front. But I gotta say, do check this out. The demo's there for you all to play. It's being developed by Door 407. If you want to check them out, you can go on their Discord server. But I also think it's worth mentioning that this is an early access game. It's also an indie title if you like to support smaller studios. There is also the fact that it is a single player game. It's not multiplayer. I know a lot of people have been wanting to do these type of games in a co-op fashion. We are still waiting for that to come around. And in terms of when it actually comes out, it's on the 9th of February 2022. So not too far away. And personally, I gotta say, I hope this does really, really well because I have just enjoyed this so much so far. Anyway, let me know what you think so far. I'd be really interested to hear what you think on it. Did you play They Are Billions, for example? Let me know in the comments. But more importantly, stay safe, stay well, and I'll be back with more games and news soon.